Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Drusilla Tigner, and I'm the Reproductive Rights Political Strategist for the ACLU of Texas. Before I get started, if anybody has any audio problems, like if you can't hear me right now, there's a chat function, and you can type in any technical difficulties that you're having on your end, and we can try to remove them. This is also a great place. The chat is a good place to put in your questions as we move forward, and we'll go ahead and answer them at the end. We'll also take verbal questions from everybody at the end. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. We've got a packed webinar agenda. Just so everybody knows they're at the right place, we are at the Fighting Local Abortions Bans Toolkit for Reproductive Freedom webinar. This webinar and the toolkit itself was put together by several organizations, and I'm going to try to move the slides now. There we go. It's us, Planned Parenthood, Lilith Fund, Progress Texas, Texas Freedom Network, NARO Pro-Choice Texas, and T-Fund, all organizations working on reproductive freedom here in Texas and also nationally in some cases. So your presenters today are me, Drusilla Tigner, Delma Catalina Limones, the Communications Manager for NARO Pro-Choice Texas, and Kelly Hart, Senior Director of Public Affairs at Planned Parenthood Greater Texas. A quick agenda for today. I'm going to get us kicked off with why we're here and what you can do about the problem. Kelly is going to go over a case study, which Mineral Wells was a city in Texas that tried to ban abortion, but we were able to defeat it. And then Delma is going to talk a little bit about how to talk about abortion, and then we're going to take your questions and answers. So without further ado, why we are here. So 6 cities in Texas have passed a local abortion ban just in the last few weeks, or a few months, excuse me. On June 11, 2019, the city of Wascom, which is right over there, you can see it, the red dot on the line on the border between Louisiana and Texas. It's right about 20 miles west of Shreveport, banned abortion, and then a few cities followed suit, including Omaha, Naples, Tenaha, Joaquin, and Gilmer. Since over the last couple of weeks, Omaha has actually downgraded their abortion ban to a resolution, and a resolution has no force and effect. It's just a statement stating that they disagree with reproductive freedom, generally speaking, and abortion specifically. But they did end up passing that resolution, and so it is still on the books. To give a brief overview of what this means, I'm assuming a lot of you are like, well, they banned abortion. Can they do that? The answer is not overly clear, not exactly. So the ordinances, they do ban abortion. They also ban emergency contraception, which is just basic birth control that you take when your other birth control fails at the time. And it criminalizes organizations, including several of the organizations that have worked on this toolkit. The trick is, the reason that they think that they can do this is that the laws will not be enforced by the cities until Roe v. Wade is overturned. So Roe v. Wade is the case that gives us a constitutional freedom to access abortion care. And so this is what we commonly call a trigger law. The law, though, is in effect. It's just not currently being enforced by the city council or any other city officials or the mayor. An interesting twist in this trigger ban is that it can be enforced by private citizens right now. Something in the legal world called a qui tam action, where a private citizen can bring an action on behalf of the city council or on behalf of the city to enforce the law. So while it is not being enforced technically, it still could potentially be enforced any minute. So it's a problem. It's a growing epidemic. It's something that we think that is not just going to stop in East Texas. We expect it to move to other parts of the state. And while we're doing our best to fight these bans as they pop up, you know, there's just not enough advocates on the ground, and that's why we need you. That's where you come in. And so that brings me to my next slide of what can you do? And with my fancy animation, you can be an abortion advocate. We need you. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to really like make a dent in this wave of abortion bans that we feel like are coming in over the next, coming months and hopefully not years, but possibly. So in order to do that, And the what can you do? We've created this toolkit that is just 6 simple steps to success, or we like to think that they'll be simple steps, or you'll feel that way after the band or after this webinar. You know, we're going to discuss today not just the steps and like how you can accomplish them, but also how you can use the toolkit on the website and the basics of the functionality of it before we move on to our other presenters. So our first step is monitor your city council agenda. So I know a lot of you on the call right now are probably not thinking to yourself that I am ready to be an abortion rights champion. I get that. Not everybody wants to be out front. Not everybody wants to have their face, you know, as the, you know, poster child or person for abortion rights in their community. I understand. So this is your opportunity to make a big difference in the community without having to be the advocate in front of, you know, the city council. So there are 962 cities in 254 counties in Texas. Every single one of those cities is a potential target for an abortion ban, and all 254 counties are also in a potential target. And we need people to monitor those agendas. I mean, it's really basic. So most councils meet about twice a month. They vary from council to council. They will post their agendas online prior to their meetings up to 72 hours in advance. And all we need you to do is take a look at those agendas, see if there's any major red flags that you see, if something looks a little fishy or squirrely. Just let us know. So you can let us know at abortionaccess@aclutexas.org, or you can contact any one of the sponsoring organizations that are on this webinar today or who have sponsored the toolkit. We also recommend that if this is something that you're interested in doing, just setting an alarm and on your phone and checking it every 2 weeks. It should take 5 minutes of your time and will make an incredible impact on your community and the work that we're trying to do here today. Step 2, once you've been monitoring your agendas for a couple of weeks and you're starting to feel more comfortable with the idea of abortion advocacy, we invite you to do step 2, which is to recruit your rapid response team. These are the people you're going to call on when something goes down in your city. So if there ends up being an agenda item on your city council agenda, you'll call your rapid response team, and they'll be the people that are there to back you up and to present to the city council, so they know that your community cares about abortion access. The toolkit which you'll receive after this call, or I'll give you a link to it in this webinar, but you'll also receive an email, has extensive tips and tricks for how to recruit a rapid response team. But it's really just basically getting your neighbors, your friends, your families, other people you know that are interested in this issue together and talking about it and sharing this toolkit with them and engaging them in a meaningful way, and then keeping them connected. So, you know, you have your first rapid response meeting, and then a few weeks later, you could send out an article, or you can get them engaged in a different way in order to eventually encourage action. And so I love to think of rapid response teams as, you know, they're my network, they're my friend group. It's a fun time. You can talk to people who are interested in the things that you're interested in, and it's a good way to meet new people. And there's also the people that you can rely on. You know that you can rely on when things become hairy at your city council agendas or city council meetings. Step 3 is a little more advanced. So you have been doing, you know, you've been monitoring your agendas, you've been talking to your friends and family, you're feeling really good, you're feeling really confident. The next step in becoming an abortion rights advocate is to meet with your elected officials. So the first thing I'm going to say is, before you meet with your elected officials, please reach out to us, either at abortionaccess@aclutexas.org, or again, any of the other sponsoring organizations on this webinar, to get a lay of the land. We can walk you through all of the steps that you're going to need to take in order to have a successful office visit. All of those steps are also in the toolkit, but it's always nice to talk it out with somebody, and that's what we're here for. And If you're in a city, especially a major metro area, we have staff in almost all of the metro areas in Texas, and so we want to make sure you're connected with that person on the ground so you can have as most effective meeting as possible. So please do that. But before your meeting, once you've reached out to us and you've talked to your local advocates on the ground, the next thing you need to do is to get to know your landscape. An easy way you can Google your city council members, get an idea of where they stand on certain issues, specifically on our issues. But if you can't find what they believe on reproductive rights, you can kind of find other issues that are relevant or similar and get an idea of where they might fall. After you've compiled that information, you want to set up your meeting. Most city council members, or a lot of city council members, will have staff, but not all of them. If you're in a smaller town, that may just be them. But you can reach out to them directly. You can usually find their contact information on the city website. In that meeting, you're looking to make your case and make your ask. Making your case is simple. It's like why you're there. You're a member of the community that is concerned about the idea that an abortion ban may come to your city or it may come to your county, and why that matters to you. If you have a personal story, this is a wonderful time to insert it into the conversation. And then you want to make your ask. And your ask can be simply, please do not support an abortion ban if it comes to your city. It can be a little bit more, which is if they seem open to talking to you, you can ask them to update you or to notify you if people start talking about an abortion ban at the city or county level. And finally, if they seem very receptive, you can suggest that they consider becoming an abortion rights champion or advocate and introducing a proactive abortion ordinance at their city council level. If somebody does end up doing that, please let us know and we can connect with them and get them the tools they need to be able to move that proactive agenda forward. And your final step is to report out. In the toolkit, there is a form that you can fill out that has all the information that you could possibly need. Send that over to us or send it over to your contact or another organization, so we can have a good idea of like what's going on and how other city councils or how city councils are responding to your advocacy. Step 4, which is not in any certain order because you can get social at any time, is to get social. 68% of people get their news from social media. That's an astounding statistic to me and a really relevant one, I think, to the work that we do every day. The two platforms that we think are most relevant to this work right now are Facebook and Twitter. There are, of course, many other social websites, including Instagram, but we focused on this toolkit at Facebook and Twitter. Facebook is great for reaching supporters quickly. It's also really good for forming groups. We encourage you to consider thinking about creating a Facebook group for your rapid response team or your community, in order to be able to cultivate like-minded individuals in a group and an easy place to reach them. Twitter is good for inserting yourself into the conversation and for reaching a lot of people. With the use of hashtags and tagging other individuals, you can insert yourself in the conversation in a way that you can't with Facebook when you really just rely on the people that you're friends with or who follow you. But in the toolkit, we have some already pre-formulated social posts that you can use. We also have graphics that you can use. It's really easy. You copy, you paste, you send it out to your friends or your relatives on your Facebook page or your followers, and then you're done. You've completed at least one version of step 4. And so for those of you, this is oftentimes, you might want to do this as your second step. Getting social is an easy way to show your support. There we go. Step 5 is control the narrative. This is about engaging with the media in a meaningful way, especially if you're in a smaller town that has one publication. This is a way to really make a big impact and a big splash. 2 ways of entering into the control the narrative, the media strategy, is through op-eds and letters to the editors. An op-ed is a piece that you would submit to reflect your opinion, and letter to the editor is a response. These are, if you're interested in doing this, please reach out to either us or Planned Parenthood Texas Votes, and we can help you move this right along and make sure that your op-eds and letters to the editors are as effective as possible. And the final step is to prepare for the city council meeting. You want to notify either us or your partner organizations. I mean, there's a theme here. It would be great if you guys can keep us in the loop for all the work that you're doing. You want to notify your rapid response team. You want to prepare to testify. So look up the procedure. Usually on the agenda, there's a procedure for testifying. Oftentimes it's limited to 2 to 3 minutes. You want to draft your testimony, which includes these things: your name, the district you live in, how long you've lived in the community, if you represent anyone else, and your position and why you hold that position. So this is the most important step in a lot of ways. If you show up to your city council agenda and you tell them that they don't, or city council meeting, you tell them that you don't agree with this, they will listen to you. And so if you really, the entire toolkit is set up to be able to notify us that something is happening on your agenda, and to prepare yourself for the idea of like being an advocate in your community through the city council meeting. I'm running up against my time, but I wanted to do a quick like walkthrough of the toolkit. This is the link, aclutexas.org/toolkit. We tried to make it easy. And hopefully this technology works. I just wanted to show you how quick and easy it is. It's in these drawers, so you can click on a drawer and it'll show you the information from the toolkit. You can also, if there is information that you need, there will be a link to a form or to the social, for example, in the Get Social, to the social media posts and the pictures. If my internet will work and pop it up. Well, maybe not, but you get the idea. There's also a place here where you can download the toolkit in paper form, and you can print it out. It has all of the steps, as well as at the bottom here. It has each of the resources that you can use. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Kelly at Planned Parenthood.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Oh, okay, wait. Oh, and you can see me. Okay. Who's moving the slides?
Kelly, I think you're on mute still.
No.
No?
No, I'm not. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, there I am. Okay. Drew, can you hear me? Okay. Who is moving the slides? Can you go to the next slide, please? Or not. Okay. Hey, all right. Sorry, y'all. Technical glitch. Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm with Planned Parenthood of Greater Texas. I work with the statewide organization Planned Parenthood Texas Votes. And we had the misfortune of having one of these sanctuary city things pop up on the agenda of Mineral Wells, which is a city a little bit to the west of Fort Worth. And we have health centers and an administrative office and staff in Fort Worth. And so we were able to be on the ground when the city council was debating this agenda item. So you could see here the mayor of Mineral Wells. He got the bright idea that he should follow Wascom, Texas, and introduce a similar proposal into his city. And we were fortunate because Mineral Wells is in Parker County, and we had already established a relationship with Parker County Democrats. So the members of Parker County Democrats, the local LULAC organization, the Palo Pinto Democrats, and Progressive Democrats, they were watching the agenda. They alerted us to what was going on. We alerted our partners. So everybody was apprised as quickly as they could have been that this was going to be taking place. And so we immediately went into action. So if you'll go to the next slide. And so we began organizing, and I would like to give a shout out to all of the local Democratic groups because they spent the entire weekend there on the ground. organizing groups, letting them know what was going on, lining up people to testify. Next slide. On the social media level, and these are obviously Texas Votes examples, but all of the organizations were doing this, sending emails to our supporters so we could help spread the word, particularly our supporters in Parker County, in the city of Mineral Wells, letting them know what was going on, and keeping track of what was happening the day of in real time via Facebook and primarily Twitter as well. And so having the relationship with the organizers and the local Democratic groups, they knew who to call at Planned Parenthood. We knew who to call in the statewide organization of groups that are monitoring this. And so we were all able to mobilize our supporters, and because the cities don't give you a lot of time, you don't have a week or so to think about this, you need to move, which is why it is so very important, as Drusilla was talking about, that you've begun some of that network building before you ever see an ordinance on the agenda for your city council. Okay, next slide. So what we did the day of, we had our team, and Texas Votes had a team member out there as well, and also members of the other organizations. So we were out there with our signs. You can see Texas Women Vote in the picture there. We had swag for supporters. We had talking points for supporters. I think NARAL was there as well. They had provided talking points. And so my colleague, Astrid, who was out there, she said, one of the things that was really valuable about this is that in spreading the word and getting a large crowd to turn out and working with the other organizations, we were able to answer questions that supporters had, clarify any doubts or concerns they might have had, or questions, so that they knew what they were talking about. And we also provided talking points so that more supporters felt emboldened and empowered and confident to testify before the city council. We know of 6 people that we had chatted with who ended up testifying in opposition to the ordinance the day that they were taking the vote. So again, I think that really emphasizes how important it is that in addition to monitoring the website of your city council so that you know as soon as possible if something like this pops up on the agenda, that you automatically have some email addresses and some phone numbers of your local reproductive justice, reproductive health care, reproductive rights organizations. You have your list of friends, you have your Facebook group, and boom, you are moving it and making it happen, because you have 2 or 3 days at the most, and that's really important. And so next slide, please. And so, yay, there were more sensible members on the Mineral Wells City Council than not, and they voted against moving the ban forward. And so we're very pleased about that. And so we just feel that this is like a really good example of how it works right. It works right in that we had pre-established relationships. It works right that we were able to rapidly mobilize everybody. And it worked right because the confidence of one person being out there was multiplied by all the other people were out there, and we were able to turn out and make a difference and let the leadership of that community know that that's not what they wanted their city council members to focus on. They wanted them to focus on the real issues and the real concerns of the citizens of Mineral Wells, and not these social issues that should not be the purview of the local city councils. And the last point I want to make about this is, and this is kind of funny, so we had another member of one of the groups last weekend who texted our Fort Worth staff member to say that a sanctuary city proposal had popped up on the agenda of Parker County commissioners, and that the very next day this sanctuary city bill was going to be heard. And so we're all like, oh my gosh, what is this? What's going on? Texting and emailing all of our colleagues. Well, fortunately, it was a Second Amendment sanctuary city issue, but I like it that we know that there are members there are supporters who are paying attention to what their city council's doing, and that they're letting us know. And I think that also exemplifies that you may not think you need to be paying attention to what your city or county elected officials are doing, But for these issues that you care about and the other issues that you care about, they could be doing similar things. And so it's just a good idea to know who your local elected officials are, how they feel about the things you care about, and what are they talking about, because a lot of those decisions will directly affect your life right there wherever you're living. And so that is the last part I want to make. So I'll turn it back over to you, Drew.
Great, thank you, Kelly. I am passing it on to Delma now. Delma, I will be unmuting you as soon as this works.
All right, can you all hear me? I'm trying to see in the chat if people can hear me. Okay, sounds like y'all can. Great. So I'm going to talk about how to talk about abortion. I think that when people think about messaging, they just think about media, but messaging is important in so many other situations, right? For example, like Drew and Kelly already stated, you might be talking to an elected official. It's important to have effective messaging when talking to your elected official. Messaging also comes into play when you are testifying in front of your city council, even when you're sharing on social media. I feel like the most effective messaging, the majority of us do not read newspapers or news sites. We get our news through social media. And so what you are posting online has the ability to influence people. And so even if you're not testifying in front of your city council or writing an op-ed, it is just important that when you're speaking about this issue that you're using the most effective messaging. Can you guys, thank you. And so, right, we want proactive messaging too, because what we know is that the other side is obviously using messaging to also advance their issue, right? And we think that their issue is regressive. But what is proactive messaging, right? Effective messaging has the ability to get people to join your cause. And that can look like in a variety of ways. That can look like people, maybe your city council, like influencing your city council members to maybe vote against something. It can look like someone, if you post it on social media, someone deciding like, wow, I had no idea this was happening. This was very moving. I'm at least gonna go sit in support at this meeting. Or it can look like someone sharing your post, right? There's a range of ways that people can join your cause or support you. And effective messaging is guided by values and facts, right? But it also appeals to emotion. So that's what I'm going to talk about for the next couple of minutes. Drew or whoever is hosting, controlling the slide, I don't know if it's possible for you guys to not just like share the screen, but go ahead and turn on the video to me.
We're gonna work on that.
Okay, all right, no problem. So I'll just talk. I was just wanting people to put a face to me, but hopefully that happens as I'm talking. So when we have effective messaging, there's a lot of times that when people feel very passionate about an issue, they talk from a place of opinion, and that can be very passionate, but it's not necessarily the most effective thing. So I want you to just like think about any time that you've been passionate about any issue. And usually when we're passionate and we're angry about something, maybe we curse a lot, or maybe we use a lot of statements that come from a place of like, I think, instead of focusing on the facts, right? So there's many ways that you can prove your facts, right? You can prove your facts through research, through polling, case studies. You can back up your claims through the media reporting, right? The media has to adhere to ethical standards and report factual claims. Or even if it's not factual claims, if you are wanting to pinpoint in your testimony or wherever it is that you're posting something that an anti-abortion advocate said something extreme and it was posted in the media, that is a fact because it's something that you can back up, right? So I want you to always think of a fact as something that you can back up, but it also helps reinforce your statement. And the reason that it's important to reinforce your statement is that in these situations where you are testifying in front of a council, you might be outnumbered. Usually when something like this is introduced, it's because someone has an agenda, right? And someone feels compelled to advance it. And like Kelly Andrew said, we don't have a lot of time to stop this. So we need to come not only with our thoughts and anger, but we need to channel that into a way that is effective and concise. The best ways, I think that aside from the facts, focusing on values, right? The other side likes to pretend that they are based on values. Something that they've been using a lot in these local ordinances, specifically here in Texas, is co-opting the language of immigrant rights. So using sanctuary cities. So we know that the sanctuary cities, or just sanctuary for immigrants language, came from the immigration rights movement. It came from a movement that was trying to restore dignity and respect to the immigrant community. And I think it's just very telling that the anti-abortion side, in order to appeal to their values, they had to co-opt the language of an actual movement, right? You can kind of tell already there that their movement doesn't really stand on values, and you only have to see who's passing these ordinances or introducing them. It's not, it's usually, there was a picture that Drew shared that it was like old white men. And so the people who are passing and introducing these ordinances are not in all affected by that, right? Like that can be a fact. That's something that you can prove. And I can go ahead and give you all of this and tell you that whenever you're writing your messaging, or whether that's on social media or you're drafting testimony for a city council meeting, to focus on facts and to also be guided by values. But as someone who has also testified in front of a city council or state legislature, it is also, it can be very scary, right? And the reality is that the members have the ability to ask questions of you. And so I think that as I've talked to people in messaging trainings, I think that what they are most fearful of is that I really care about this issue. I just don't want to hurt it because I don't know how to talk about it. And something to remember is that you don't have to answer anything that you don't know the answer to, and you probably shouldn't be doing that, right? But I know that it can be very difficult when you're put on the spot. And so just remember that if someone is asking you something and you don't know the answer to, it's okay to say, like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be happy to get back to you, right? And you can reach out to any one of us. Another situation that I've encountered when people are testifying or just like dealing with arguments with like loved ones is that the other side might be equipped, like they might be just as passionate about their issue and they might come equipped with facts, right? But that's when our values come back in. So someone can be like, these are the reasons that I am against abortion, and these are my facts to back it up. And in that situation, what I like to suggest is to acknowledge, like validate the person, but also assert your values, right? So someone can tell you that they are anti-abortion and throw out all these facts. And I don't think it's effective to get into a back and forth, but just the way to end that is to like just acknowledge, I would not make that decision for myself, but I can also accept someone's decision to end a pregnancy, right? These two are not mutually exclusive. Another example of that is that, some of those reasons for ending a pregnancy might not seem right, but it is best for someone to make the best decisions for themselves rather than other people making them for them. And so a lot of the times it can be difficult whenever, like, we might have our talking points, we might have our testimony, and we might go up to the podium, or we might encounter someone sitting to us or sitting next to us. that will ask us something and we don't know the answer to, and we don't want to hurt our issue by saying something that's out of line. But I think the best thing to remember is to acknowledge and assert, right? So like acknowledge what they're saying, and then remember, but like, I hear you, but this is the fact, but this is my value. And you don't have to get into a back and forth, and that's probably not the most effective thing that we recommend. In other situations where it's been very scary to like assert my beliefs, whether that's in a public setting like a city council meeting or online, is when the rhetoric by the other side is supercharged and it plays into fear mongering. And it's not just on this issue, it's on so many other issues, whether that's immigration rights, LGBTQ. What I would advise in that situation is to never repeat the opposition's language, and do not accept their facts as legitimate, right? The other side likes to appeal to fear. It likes to, a lot of their statements aren't based on facts or science. They like to throw out outrageous claims like, you know, that are based on like racism. You know, for example, like they'll say things like abortion clinics are put strategically in communities of color. In that situation, to rebuke that, I would not repeat that, but I would say, you know, I would not repeat their claim. But what I would say as a Latina, I would speak from my personal experience that my community is disproportionately impacted by abortion bans, right? So that's how I would go against that. And so if you're ever put in a situation where, you know, you do have to, whether that's a family member or city council member, that you are arguing against or have to say something in response, just remember to never repeat claims that are super outrageous, and to also not accept their facts as legitimate. And that's it for my section. I will make sure that I include a one-page messaging that we give to a lot of people who testify and to elected officials on like how to speak about abortion. It's a one-pager, which would have not been the best resource to put in this webinar, since it just has a lot of text of like, say this, not that, and I will make sure that the link to that is included in that toolkit that Drew shared. But thank you guys.
Thanks, Thelma. And yeah, the link, we will definitely have the one pager in the toolkit, and you guys are going to be able to take a look at it when we send the link out later. And so now we just wanted to give some space for questions. You can either unmute yourself and ask us questions, or you can type it in the chat.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, so my name is Sylvia. I am the founder of a reproductive justice group here in my city, Laredoans for Reproductive Justice. And we're starting, we're brand new. We had a teach-in about abortion and the resources where you can go get one. The only problem is that we don't have any near resources to us. So when I had this meeting, I felt a little defeated because the closest Planned Parenthood to us is in San Antonio, which is 2 to 3 hours away. And I'm not quite sure if it's because Laredo has like an abortion ban, and I don't think we do really, but we don't have resources at all. And so I want to ask, like, what is it that we can do on this side, because not only do we not have resources to just abortion or healthcare, but it's just more like reproductive healthcare in general. There's no affordable access to a lot of us, and we are Laredo's filled with like minorities. We are a poor city with a big we're not very diverse. A lot of us are like Latinos or Hispanic people, and I just wanted to know what is it that we can do, because we don't have affordable like healthcare at all here. So, you know, despite the fact that whether it's legal or not, I think a lot of it is that we don't have resources at all.
Yeah, I mean, those are great points. So many people in Texas, abortion is a right in name only, unfortunately. And And I think that advocating in your community is absolutely the first step. And so I'm glad you're here and on the webinar. And I encourage you, when we send out the toolkit, to look through it. But you know, I think that the best place to start is to connect with us. We have members or individuals in you know, not too far from you, not super close, who can help you organize on the ground. We're happy to help you organize remotely, and that's the whole point of us being here. Is like, we want to be a resource for you. We want to share, you know, what we have, our knowledge. We want to learn from you too, what you need. And so, like, that's, I think that opening this dialogue is what is the first step. And after that, we can, you know, hopefully move forward. And one day, you know, the goal of this advocacy is to increase abortion access in Texas statewide, and to remove a lot of these barriers to access that your community and so many other communities are facing. And so I think that you're taking the exact right step, and we need to, I hope that we are able to support you and help you in that. So keep up the fight, and please keep connected. I'll be sure to, I have your email now, I'll be sure to connect personally, so we can be, fight the fight together.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
This is Delma. Something that I wanted to add to, I believe Sylvia was her name, to what Sylvia added or said, is that, you know, maybe there's not an abortion ban that's being introduced in your local community, but the reality is that Texas does have, and I believe this is a stat from the ACLU, Texas leads the state or the nation in the most abortion deserts. That means is that these are abortion deserts, or communities that are farther away from, more than 100 miles from the closest abortion provider, right? And like Sylvia stated, it's there's a community that needs care and can't access it. To that extent, I know that there's a lot of different advocates, right? People, I think Sylvia highlighted a lot of things. It wasn't just that people can't access just abortion care, they just can't access reproductive health care in general. There's a lot of different policies and attacks that are in play in that landscape. But to the extent of abortion rights, I think that's something that's also important, is that in the midst of these bans, what happens is that it creates confusion, not just in those communities, it creates confusion all over the state. When someone hears in the news, just think about any time that you heard something in the news and then you were repeating it to your friend and you were like, you know, I'm not sure what the details were, but this is what I heard in the news, right? And then that kind of creates this grapevine of, and if people are hearing, you know, abortion was banned in a city, anyone who has played telephone, the message starts off by saying one thing, and next thing you know, a lot of people are confused. So to that extent, I know that we have a resource with other partners in our coalition, that's a Know Your Rights campaign. It's needabortion.org, and I'll be sure that that resource is also included in Drew's toolkit. And it's important that even if a local ban is not being introduced, that you educate the people in your community about how to access care, and what their resources are and what their rights are in this landscape.
Drew, can I just follow up on that point real quickly?
Please do.
So going back to what Delma said, the other part about this is that in their zeal to get rid of abortion access in Texas, legislative leaders in Austin have decimated the reproductive health care, family planning, safety net in this state. So it's no accident that the fact that you can't get an abortion in your community is tied into the fact that you can't get reproductive health care at all. And I think that's important too when you're talking and educating, and in many cases it's educating local elected officials. I don't know where to go to get birth control. I don't know where to go because I think I have a vaginal infection. I don't know where to go for these very basic needs that I have. And oh, by the way, I don't like living in an abortion desert. So all of it's connected, and we're advocating for all of it in one and the same.
And I wanted to add again, sorry, someone asked in the chat, what is the birth control options, or like what are the options that we have here in Laredo? We have a, how do I say, we don't have a lot. We have like these community clinics, and it's very hard to find any place to get birth control. The only place that I can think of is if you're a student, we have a university here that has like a clinic, and a gynecologist comes like once a week, and then you can get control through there. And then you can also go to Gateway, which is another clinic, but they charge you. And I'm not sure how much they charge you. I know they go based off of income, but regardless, not everyone can afford these privileges, and they shouldn't even be privileges in the first place. And I wanted to continue with the fact that I feel like there are things that I want to do with this organization, and like a lot of it is like wanting to pass out free contraception, and like being able to take like people to a healthcare clinic where they're able to go get checked and able to do these things. But obviously that costs a lot of money, and this organization's like barely starting, so there's just a lot of like barriers that I feel like I keep running into, because again, there are no resources here in Laredo.
Delma or Kelly, would you like to add anything to resources potentially available to those, and maybe not just Laredo, but other places that might have the most closest access to healthcare?
Yeah, so I think that what Sylvia brought up is that, and like I said earlier, she's touching on a lot of issues. It's not the same place that there's no publicly funded way of getting abortion access. If people need abortion access specifically in Texas, you can't use your private insurance, unfortunately, and you can't use public insurance like Medicaid, but there are abortion funds that exist. Now, to get just basic reproductive health care like birth control, the nation's largest and most trusted reproductive health care provider is Planned Parenthood, whom we love a lot, and they have faced countless attacks here in Texas. Just recently, nationwide, the Title X program, they were kicked out, basically forced out by a domestic gag rule. Except here in Texas, we did that about 8 years ago, which kind of dismantled this reproductive health safety net. The best way for low-income people without insurance to access care, I know that Planned Parenthood sees people, and you can just go and see what your closest provider is. But in communities like Sylvia's that don't have a Planned Parenthood, that might accessing a Planned Parenthood might mean going past a border checkpoint, right? There's also what are called Title X clinics. This program has also faced a lot of attacks, and a lot of attacks that are based on anti-abortion influence. So it still might be difficult to get access under that program, but you might want to see what your closest Title X clinic is. And sorry, that's my alarm. And I will include a number in the chat from Jane's Due Process. It's usually to help minors access birth control through the Title X program, but they have extended that line for adults. So I'll go ahead and share that resource in the chat right now.
And I want to direct everybody's attention in the chat to the PlannedParenthoodDirect.org website. So Planned Parenthood in Texas in multiple states has an app. You can go to the website, you can download the app to your iPhone or Android phone, and you can chat with one of our clinicians remotely, and you can have some forms of birth control as well as QTI treatment if necessary, shipped directly to your house or to your pharmacy. So this is one way in which we are doing what we can to provide some amount of care to people in locations where we don't have a brick and mortar building. So that's PlannedParenthoodDirect.org.
Great, thank you for those answers and those questions. Anybody else have any questions they want to ask before we close? No? All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you to Delma and Kelly, and thank you for everybody who joined. This webinar will be posted on the internet, and we'll send out a link to the webinar for you for easy access. We'll also be sending out a link to the toolkit that we referenced several times this evening. And until then, feel free to reach out to me, to Delma, or to Kelly, and we look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you so much.